Architrave Gaming, I'm the Archmaster. I have been looking forward to making this video for a long time. This is the video where I tell you exactly what the so-called RPG, the so-called role-playing game is that we play at the table. You know, D&D, all of these, the actual full composite activity that we're actually engaging in. It's not just role-playing, it's not a role-playing game, it is not a storytelling game, it is not just an adventure game, it's not just escapist, going into another world. It's actually 4 distinct parts that come together, and only one of them is actually a game. But trying to take all 4 of those and weave them in together and have this full, rich experience, that is a game in and of itself. So that is the full collective game that we're all playing. So I am nervous, I am excited, I am so looking forward to this. So thank you for watching. YouTube pleasantries go a long way. All right. First of all, a brief preamble. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I have 66 tabs open right now. Obviously, I'm not going to go read all of these in this one video, but there will be follow-up videos that explain each of the 4 main quadrants. Oh, I'm starting now. All right. There are 4 main quadrants to what this experience is, and they amount to a daydream. But before I get into that, I'm just going to read one of my articles that I wrote, years ago maybe. Just to add a little confusion before I start clarifying things. All right, there are several concepts which often get confused or overlooked and need definition. Adventure, social interaction, roleplay, acting, and narrative/story. Adventure. First of all, D&D is not a role-playing game. It is an adventure game. You can roleplay in D&D if you want, but the game is not about roleplaying. You can also roleplay in Monopoly, Clue, The Game of Life, or Call of Duty. But those aren't role-playing games either. Role-playing is what you do in your head, the method by which you make your in-game decisions. The game itself is about adventure, though. A lot of people seem to miss this. Next, social interaction. Secondly, social interaction is not the same as role-playing. You can role-play while fighting, while exploring, while interacting in social situations, or while doing anything else in the game. Role-playing is what you do in your head that determines how your character acts in any of these situations. Acting. Acting is not the same as role-playing. Voice acting is unnecessary for role-playing and is usually done as a performance for the benefit of those at the table and not for yourself. But role-playing is done entirely for yourself. You may feel compelled to embody your character in a number of ways, physically, vocally, etc., to enhance your immersion into your character. But in true role-playing, this is done for your own benefit and not done as a performance. Role-playing is what you do in your head, how you determine your character's actions. Story/narrative. And lastly, D&D is not about the story. It is not a story game, although WotC is telling people it is. The story takes place in the parking lot after the game is over, when you tell the story about what happened in the adventure game. But at the table, you are playing an adventure game and not telling a story. Yes, you are using words to tell the GM how your character acts, but that is not telling a story. You are playing a pencil and paper adventure game and rolling dice and killing monsters, and you tell a story about what happened afterward. The same way you tell someone about your dream after you've had it. It's hinting, we're going to get to it. As a summary, an enormous problem with modern D&D 5e is that people don't understand what it is designed to be, largely due to the fact that WotC doesn't know either. And they keep trying to make it a story game like Powered by the Apocalypse games, and they keep trying to make it some acting/performance exercise like Critical Role. The way D&D was originally intended was as an adventure game, and a lot of other things kind of added on top of that. I'm not going to read the rest of the article because it's not relevant right now. On to the next thing. Okay. If you made it this far, you're about to get it. All right. So, just freeform quick before I keep reading. The experience we have at the table, the thing we go there for, is not just adventure. It's not just storytelling, it's not just role-playing, and it's not just immersion into another world. It's all 4 of those. All 4 of those combine and connect to make the full experience we have. It's inaccurate to simply, tell your friends, hey, by the way, I'm off to John's house on Thursday to roleplay. It's like, well, you're doing more than that. If you're like, hey, I'm off to John's house to just play D&D, just play the adventure game, I'm just off to adventure, that's not accurate either. If you say, hey, I'm off to go, tell stories with my friends, that's not all you're doing. And if you're like, hey, I'm off to go pretend I'm in another world, the verisimilitude, the immersion in another world, that's not all you're doing either. all four of those are the collective activity. All four of those form the collective activity that you're actually playing. That collective activity, what it really is more like a dream. It's like a daydream. You are going in there. It is a collaborative, imaginative daydream experience. Yes, that's a big mouthful, but that's technically much more accurate than saying, oh yeah, I'm playing D&D. It's like, that's only the adventure game part of the whole experience. You're only talking about the one thing. And the reason why it's important to actually know the difference between these things and realize, oh wait, I'm actually doing 4 different activities at once, and only one of them is a game, and all the rest are just other activities, it frees up so much, it clears up so much confusion. When so many people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go play D&D, or I'm going to go role play, and there's just an unbelievable amount of confusion and misdirection and misalignment of people's goals and activities at the table, and it's so hard for people to find tables. My goal here is to get you to play more games, is to get you, actually, technically it's not a game, only the adventure game part of it is a game, all the rest are different activities. So my goal here is to get you to do more daydreaming, because that's really what you're doing on those Thursday nights with your friends. It's a daydream, or if the sun is down, it's a night dream. It's a waking dream. That's really what this is that we're doing. It's the most fun you can have with your brain, because it's like a dream. Dreams are great. Dreams are wonderful. When you go into a dream, right? It's so much better when you believe it's real. As soon as you are lucid and you know it's not real, it loses the luster. And you must say, oh, I love lucid dreams. I get to do whatever I want. It's like, yeah, in a lucid dream, the reason why, those of us who can control the world around us in a lucid dream, the reason why that's fun is because we get to do things in that sort of dream that we don't get to do in real life. But I'll ask you, if you were going to play, if you were going to have a lucid dream where you knew that nothing was real, and you were Superman, you could fly around, you were super strong, laser beams, all that stuff, or you could dream where, yeah, you were Superman, fly around, laser beams, all the fun stuff, but you actually thought it was real. You have the lucid dream where you know it's not, and then the immersion where you think it is real. Which one would you choose? Which one would you enjoy more? It's the immersion one. It's the one where you actually think it's real. Because if it's real, it's more thrilling, it's more nourishing. It's like, this is amazing, right? If you know it's not real, it's like, oh yeah, it feels hollow, right? You touch it, it's like, dun. It's not, dun, dun, dun. It's not solid, right? It's a hollow experience because you know it's not real, right? The same reason you don't want a lucid dream is the same reason why we like immersion in our tabletop experiences. It's the same reason why we don't want a character to be like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, did you see the new Godzilla movie in theaters? It's like, dude, you just woke me up from my dream. There's one thing to be kind of lucid, where you're kind of like fudging the rules and like there's a min-maxer and he's using some crazy combinations like, okay, dude, you're kind of wrecking my immersion here. Now I'm thinking about the game all the time instead of the immersion. But it's another if someone, just talks about something, totally outside of the game, and it wakes you up from the dream. You're like, I'm not even immersed in the world anymore. I woke up, right? That's why we don't like it. We come here to dream for 4 hours. We don't want to be woken up, right? So anyway, that is a rundown of what it actually is. Now, I think the next few videos are going to be long because I don't want to just leave you hanging with this. Now let's get into the actual meat of these 4 quadrants of gaming, all right? I love this so much. It's so cool. And by the way, I've had some wonderful comments of people saying like, hey, it's D&D isn't just an adventure game, it's a role-playing game, and I've enjoyed so much engaging with those. This is that video I was promising you. It's like, hey, upcoming video, this is it. We're gonna get into it. And I would love to see your comments, to hear you disagree with me or agree or whatever. I'm really looking forward to it. All right, so the first, I want to make sure y'all understand what I'm about to say. Okay. All right, the anatomy of the experience that we're after goes something like this. You have a goal that you want, and there are technically 4 different goals, 1 for each quadrant. And then you have the activity you must do to accomplish each goal, and then there is the support that makes the activity possible. So you have the support that makes the goal possible, the support that makes the activity possible, and the activity achieves the goal, right? For instance, the first goal is verisimilitude, which is believability. Like you actually believe the world is real. That's the initial just falling asleep. We're now asleep. We're now in a dream. We're now in another world, and we believe that the other world is real, right? So the first goal is verisimilitude or believability. The activity is a good simulation, so you have to simulate that world to actually make it believable. And the two tools that support this activity are the simulation toolbox in the rulebook, like the player's handbook, and the second tool is the GM's common sense rulings, right? Like if someone wants to jump off a 100-foot cliff, and it's like, oh, well, you die, right? You know, you don't need to look, all right, exactly what are the rules for gravity? It's like, you have a common sense ruling. Yeah, gravity works, you fall, you know? So, the first goal is verisimilitude, believability, immersion in the world itself. The activity to achieve that is a good simulation. You know, the GM actually saying, you know, the GM actually narrating whatnot and making the world believable. And the two tools that support that activity of a good simulation are the toolbox and the GM's common sense experience, you know, knowing that, you know, trees grow up and gravity goes down, you know, that kind of stuff. So, the simulation toolbox is essentially, you know, the parts in the D&D book that are not part of the adventure game itself. It's the parts in the book. Like the book you pick up is like a 90% adventure game and 10% simulation toolbox. And so it tells you stuff like, hey, here's how much a cart costs, here's how much a horse costs, here's how much, you know, the economy is worth, right? The, you know, weather patterns, here's how much you need to sleep, right? It's stuff that simulates a believable world. Of course, they do a terrible job of that because a wooden cart is worth 50 gold. It's like, but they tell you that commoners never see a gold piece in their life. It's like, a commoner can't chop down a couple trees and make a wooden cart and get 50 gold? What? So like their verisimilitude, their simulation is absolutely awful. You sleep and you regain all your spell slots and all your HP overnight. It's like, that's not believable. That's not immersive. So like their simulation is awful, but still, that's part of the book. It's here's the simulation. Here's to make here are the tools to make the world believable. And then the other 90% are the actual adventure game of the book. All right. So second goal, you have thrill. The first goal is, you know, I want to fall asleep and be in that dream world. I want to believe I'm there. The verisimilitude, the believability. Second goal is thrill. While I'm there, I want to be thrilled. The way we get thrill, the activity, is through adventure. And the tool we use to accomplish the activity of adventure is the adventure game, the adventure rulebook. It's no fun at all to have a simulation of being a farmer, where it's like, oh yeah, so today we're gonna go out and farm, and we just have the simulation, and you know, you gotta wait for the rains to come in, and you gotta set up a scarecrow. It's like, well, maybe there are some people that enjoy that, but I sure don't. You know, doing something boring, oh, we're just gonna like operate a bakery shop. It's like, that's not very thrilling, that's not very interesting. I don't think there are a lot of people that actually want to do that. What people want in these games when they sit down to play is adventure. They want thrill. They want something that they don't get in the real life. And yeah, maybe if you would love to have a baking stand and you never had one in real life, maybe you would want to have a fantasy where you had a baking stand. But that's not most of us, right? Most of us, when we go to play this, we want something interesting. We want something exciting. We want something thrilling. So that's why that second goal of ours, like in this experience we come to, the second goal is thrill. We get thrill through adventure. And the tool we use to accomplish adventure is the adventure game, you know, the rules and everything. And I will have a future video going all over adventure and actually what makes adventure, so you GMs can actually make your game adventurous. It's gonna be great. All right, so next, the third goal that we have in this collaborative daydream experience with all our friends. The third goal, if my screen will come back on because for some reason it keeps shutting off. The third goal is emotion. The way we get emotion, you know, good, positive emotion, actually can be positive and negative. We just want to have a strong emotional experience, right? The way we get emotion is through storytelling about meaningful things. You can't just tell a story about, you know, the sun rose. It's like, it has to be something meaningful, right? But it's through storytelling. That's that third activity, storytelling. And the way we get this is by having meaningful relationships with characters that we care about, which is all provided by the players at the table. So the third quadrant of this collaborative daydream experience we have at the table has nothing to do with the adventure game rulebook or even the 10% of the rulebook that is the simulation. It has nothing to do with this. That third quadrant of you get emotions from storytelling about, you know, meaningful things with meaningful characters we care about, that is all provided by the players at the table. That's not the game at all. when you are playing D&D, you're not really playing D&D for most of that time. I mean, if you do combat the entire time, then yeah, you are. But a lot of people actually switch between playing D&D and just telling a story with their friends. You're only really playing D&D when you're engaging with D&D, when you're rolling dice, looking at numbers, doing math, doing that stuff. That's the game, right? If you're playing, Clue, and you roll some dice and you make the suggestions and the accusation and you're moving around, and then you stop and pull out your phone, or you just talk to your friend and say, all right, by the way, let's tell a story, about anything. You start telling a story with your friend, you've put Clue on pause. You're not playing Clue right now. For those 5 minutes that you're talking with your friend about stories, you're not playing Clue. Same thing in D&D. You're rolling dice, you're attacking monsters, you're doing stuff, and then you all stop and you just talk to each other. You can talk to each other without the game rules. D&D could have never been invented, and you'd still be able to sit and talk with your friends about a story. You tell a story about, a dwarf and an elf, and they go on a life, and they're like, oh yeah, so what's your dwarf story? And you can have all that interaction completely aside from D&D or any so-called RPG, any tabletop game. You don't need any rules for that, right? These are separate activities. The whole collaborative daydream experience that we have at the table, we're not just doing one thing. We're switching between 4 things. The GM will simulate the world, and we will simulate the world along with them. Be like, all right, so yeah, I have to eat my rations, and you're doing the simulation, right? And then when combat breaks out, or exploration, or any time when the rules have to apply, and there's some kind of gamified aspect to it, right? It's one thing to just use the rules of a simulation, right? That's not a game, that's just a simulation. You're like, oh, you traveled 20 miles, now you sleep, mark off a ration. That's not a game. You just simulated something. There were no choices there was no challenge, there was no obstacle, right? There's nothing gamified about that, right? So we get kind of confused and think that the simulation is part of the game because it's on the same character sheet. But that character sheet, part of it is for the simulation, and the other part supports the adventure game itself. And a few character sheets even support the storytelling, where you have a little journal section where it's like, here's what happened, and here are my goals and things, right? It's the storytelling part. But those are 3 separate activities that you switch between. When you sit down at the table, you're playing the game, and then you're doing the simulation, and then you're telling some stories, and then you're doing the game again. You switch between these. You're not just playing D&D the whole time. You're switching between all of them. All right. Lastly, you have the fourth goal is a deep connection to the character, where you feel like them. You get this through the activity of immersion into the character, and the tool to help you be immersed in the character is role-playing. Of course, you can stop short of immersion and just role-play, but immersive role-playing is better, and that it helps you get a deeper connection to your character, and you actually have a better result. And lastly, I guess we're just going to keep going. There is the 4th concept of each of these, the high-level result that comes after all of these, right? So we're getting into the more highbrow stuff. When you have verisimilitude and thrill and emotion and personal connection, then you get escapism, catharsis, a sense of family, and personal growth or self-discovery, like diving into yourself. That's the personal connection. Those are the things we really take away from this collaborative daydream experience on Thursday nights with our friends. It's escapism, catharsis, sense of family, and personal growth or self-discovery. And then, as the last touch on top of it all, we want memories. We want to remember all of these cool things. We do get a benefit from escapism in the moment, living in another world, from catharsis and stress relief, from love and connection to our fellow human beings, and from personal self-discovery and growth. But those things mean a lot more when the benefits last. And the way they last are through our memories. So that is just the rundown. It's not fully explained yet. I don't want this video to be an hour and a half long. But that is just the first part in this series about actually explaining what this thing is. We are not just playing a game. We are not role-playing. To take the role-playing part and say, oh yeah, that's part of the game, and to take the storytelling part and be like, oh yeah, it's a storytelling game. It's not. It is a simulations toolbox with some rules about it, but that doesn't mean it's a game. It's just, systems for simulation. And then there's a game, an actual adventure game, and that's most of what's in this book, D&D. And then there's storytelling, which is in no book anywhere. You don't need a book. People have been storytelling for a long time before D&D ever came around. It's not part of D&D. It doesn't rely on D&D. D&D is not a storytelling game. You can just you can tell stories with your friends around the table without D&D. And then, lastly, you have that deep connection to a character that you get through, immersion and role playing. And I'll explain that in much more detail. But that fourth thing is, in my opinion, it enhances all of the rest. Because, if you are immersed in a world and you have that immersion, but you put role playing on top of it, and, especially immersive role playing, where you're like, I am not only in another world, that's the immersion, that's the verisimilitude of the world itself, I'm in another world, but also I am another person in another world, right? That if you look on the back of the Elder Scrolls games, it says, live another life in another world, right? That's the promise of these adventure, daydream fantasies that we go into. It's that you can be a different person in a different world, and that's why that, fourth thing is there. Anyway, yeah, so it goes tools, activity, goal, result. This is our summary. The simulation toolbox and the GM's common sense rulings give you simulation, which gives you verisimilitude, which gives you escapism. The adventure game is your toolbox. The activity is adventure. The goal is thrill, and the result is catharsis. The next tool is players. The activity is storytelling. The goal is emotion, and the result is found family. And lastly, the tool is role-playing. The activity is immersion. The goal is connection, and the result is growth. I'm looking at this now and realizing this is somewhat of an older article of mine. I think I've actually tweaked a couple of the names of these things, so in my next videos it'll be a little different, but the basic idea is still there. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. This is going to be serious. I don't know how many episodes long, but this is hopefully this will actually explain things to people, and it'll probably be like my third or fourth iteration of this video, and similar like it, where I actually trim it down to size and actually eliminate the fluff and just give a bare bones, like, plain understanding of what this is before anyone actually really understands it. But those of you who can understand me, it's great. I'd love to have you drop me a comment. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. Have a good day. God bless.